Hey there, folks. I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and we got the Karol G album bomb, and unfortunately a bunch of stuff that's not as good. And it's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. There's a part of me that wants to say that this week doesn't really matter. Morgan Wallen's gonna chart every goddamn song from that bloated 36-track thing next week. It's gonna do a number on everything here. You can't really predict what's gonna survive or what's gonna wind up recurrent. But on the other hand, it also feels like a busier week that had an album bomb of its own, and at least for now, I want to see how that plays out. But okay, let's start off with our top 10 and the predicted new number 1, Die For You by The Weeknd, remixed with Ariana Grande. Again, this isn't really surprising. Streaming and sales got a huge surge, and while the remix didn't do a ton on the radio, it's got the inertia there to snag the number 1, at least for 1 week. This overtook Flowers by Miley Cyrus at number 2, which rules the radio but got overtaken on sales, and streaming is on the downturn. You can't really say that as much for Kill Bill by SZA at number 3, which does have the streaming edge and radio is really getting on board, but again, it's a margins game and it just couldn't quite hold. Then we got Boy's a Liar Part 2 by Pink Pantheress and Ice Spice at number 4, of which the radio is actually now supporting. The streaming is rock solid, but the question will be for how long, and that takes us to the song that's likely primed for a major move, Last Night by Morgan Wallen, holding steady at number 5. The radio push is slow, but the sales are really strong, and it's really holding its own on streaming. So with the album bomb coming next week, it is primed to go to number 1, even if the radio doesn't quite get on board, making it one of the first number 1s from country in decades. Yay, I guess. It overtook Creepin' by Metro Boomin, 21 Savage, and The Weeknd to number 6, which still has a remarkable amount of radio traction, but streaming is definitely on the downswing. And that takes us to a new top 10 entry, TQG by Karol G and Shakira at number 7. We'll get into this one much later on, but Shakira's popular comeback in 2023, especially with streaming and sales, has been a really welcome surprise. I mean, I've missed her, it's just nice to see that I'm not the only one. The last 3 songs, they're all on their way out. They're fading pretty naturally. Unholy by Sam Smith and Kim Petras at number 8. It's dropping in all channels. Anti-Hero by Taylor Swift at number 9, mostly on the margins as its descent has slowed down a little bit. And Cuff It by Beyonce at number 10 as it spent the radio week with no consistency whatsoever, and that's basically all it's got. This naturally takes us to our losers and dropouts, where there were actually a couple notable ones. Blind by SZA is finally gone, along with Nociva by Grupo Frontera, but then we have Tomorrow 2 by Glorilla and Cardi B, likely notching its year-end list spot, and What My World Spins Around by Jordan Davis just being on the cusp of getting there, but not guaranteed. The losers feel a bit more scattered, but not exactly unpredictable, and for the most part, I'm not really complaining. Off the debut, Hope by NF plummeted down to 84, and off the return, Trance by Metro Boomin, Travis Scott, and Young Thug skidded down to 87. And then there's the continued loses for Lift Me Up by Rihanna at 65, year-end list spot is locked, no worries. And Everything I Love by Morgan Wallen down to 93, and that's going to rebound big time next week. But outside of that, I'm sorry, I'm not going to complain that Peso Pluma and Nathaniel Cano lost big with AMG with Gabito Ballesteros sliding down to 80, or PRC at 91, or Here With Me by David going to 94, or The Color Violet by Tory Lanez hitting 99, or Make You Look by Meghan Trainor getting rotated out at 34. At least for me, that's a lot of wins. But okay, what about our returns and gains? Well, the big story this week is the album bomb from Karol G. So immediately in the returns we saw Gatubela with Maldi returning to 74, and in our gains, Exi Volvemos with Romeo Santos saw a big revival at 48. Then there's Spin 'Bout You by Drake and 21 Savage that appears to be getting a slight radio push right now. We'll see how that's going to survive next week. But what might have more promise is Ceilings by Lizzie McAlpine getting a major jump up to 60. The streaming is kicking in, and that might just be enough to survive the week ahead. We will have to see. But more to the point, Karol G actually managed to slip into album bomb territory this week with a wealth of debuts. So outside of the best or the worst, or the songs that slipped into the top 40, we have, and again, apologies in advance for inevitably bungling the pronunciation here, Manana Sera Bonito with Carla Morrison at 98, Besties at 96, Ojos Ferrari Ferrari with Justin Quiiles and Angel Dior at 95, Pero 2 with Quevedo at 86, Gucci Los Panos at 73, and Mientras mi Curo del Cora at 68. Alright, now on to a slightly more reasonable list of new arrivals, starting off with number 100, Die For Me by Halsey. Okay, it is kind of funny that on the week that Die For You goes to number 1, at the opposite end of the Hot 100, Halsey has a song called Die For Me. That's kind of cute. But what's more shocking is that for the first time I heard it, I immediately recognized it from the song of the same name that Post Malone dropped back from Hollywood's Bleeding that had Halsey on it back in 2019. I guess I'm not surprised that they're going with it. It's been a fan favorite for years, and Halsey keeping the second verse and then fleshing out more to the track, that feels natural enough. But this is also in 2019 where you could really tell Halsey was ripping into G-Eazy, and including any of that context now just feels unnecessarily petty and really tired to me. Couple that to the hazy guitars, the compressed percussion, and the let-in bass where the mixing feels really slapdash. I mean, I get making the best of a song that really should have been a hit, especially now when seemingly anything from any time can become one, but after Halsey's last project didn't really break through in the same way, this feels like cynical management that's fixing an overdue mistake. And given that I really didn't love the original Die For Me, I don't know, just nowhere near impressed with this. Number 89, Joe by Luke Combs.
I come from where I've been, so here's to good days, better tomorrows, and a light at the end of the bottle.
So Luke Combs is just going to continue to shovel out singles before getting old, isn't he? I'd say he runs the risk of serious oversaturation, but when we got the tidal wave of Morgan Wallen coming, I guess he's just staking his claims while he still can. And man, this actually serves as a pretty stark contrast to One Thing at a Time. From the perspective of a former alcoholic after a rough couple of years, including jail time, he's now sober, he's trying to live and earn forgiveness. It has the feel of someone who's actually trying to put in the work, and if he does slip up, he's got some folks around him who are checking in and really trying to help. And you know what? For what it works, the song sounds great. The gentle percussion, the lingering pedal steel, a deceptively sharp bass line, and Luke Combs in the third person underplaying in his delivery. It's not so much reserved, but recognizing the gravitas of a personal journey, and that plays a little quieter here. So yeah, I actually think this is a great song. The singles keep getting better and better, and if that album follows through on this promise, we could be in for something special. Check this out, it's great. Number 88, Dirt by Key Glock.
Bang, yeah, Glock be the name and you're not gon' bang. I made me some millions, they think I'ma change. Hey, fuck this fame, man, fuck these chains. Made packs disappear like David Blaine. These bitches be all on my dangle line.
I don't know, I'm not sure where the buzz is sitting on Key Glock right now. His traction's always felt a bit tentative, which is why I'm a little bit surprised to see the opening cut from his newest album slip onto the Hot 100 after the release. And I gotta be honest, there are pieces to this I like. The soulful touches in the sample flip behind the trap percussion, they don't quite feel as stock as they could, and there is something of a groove here, but it is going to Key Glock, who is somewhere between Gucci Mane and Moneybagg Yo for how he blends in a lot of his ad-libs, and seems weirdly flat and kinda limited in his emotional delivery. It's not like a lot of his content goes beyond the luxury rap flexing, or how bitches beyond his dangalang. Chuck Berry, this is not. And for as much as there's some street posturing, I'm just not really sure there's enough to really stand out for me, especially when Key Glock lacks so much expressive presence. So yeah, okay, I guess this is fine if you're interested, but I think I'm gonna wind up forgetting this in record time. Just saying. Number 83, Shmunk by Yeat featuring YoungBoy Never Broke Again.
Got a blick on my side, I got big money ties and do no tax.
I gotta be honest, I'm a little bit surprised at the album bombs this week. Karol G had considerably more impact than Yeat, but even then, he was still able to notch 3 songs here, and this is one where he recruited YoungBoy Never Broke Again, and okay, let's move past the expected issues that I might have with this. The bass mixing is awful, the content is stale brand name porn and luxury rap flexing, the grinding buzzy synths don't have much presence to punch up the vibe or differentiate the verse well from the hook. But speaking of that, why does Yeat sound lobotomy lobotomized on his mumbling chorus? Isn't part of his appeal is actually getting hype? It's rage music? At least YoungBoy's coming in with some yowling intensity as per usual, and he's stuck behind the cruddy vocal mixing to boot. But let's be brutally honest here. If Yeat was not backed up by Geffen or Interscope and was on some no-name on Bandcamp, I'm not sure all of y'all would really care about this. The lack of polish here is galling. I mean, YoungBoy is better on his own rage production. We don't need Yeat sleepwalking through this mediocrity. Next, number 82, Cairo by Karol G and Ovi on the drums. So this is one of those promotional singles that actually saw worldwide success, but didn't really break through until now. It dropped last November, and that kind of irks me because when Karol G is able to sidestep into more subtle, groovy Latin pop that actually leverages her quicker patter and has some more interesting percussion, she can find a lot of quality. In this case, she's talking about the sort of one-night stand where she's laying down a lot of boundaries surrounding where this is definitively not going, very Dua Lipa New Rules-esque, but there is a tangible chance that it's gonna get more hot and heavy, spurred on by the wine and this guy's bad boy mystique. Although that pulsating breakdown does do a significant amount of help, there is a dance floor here. I do wish there was a little bit more melody behind this, but this is one of those cuts that proves that Ovi on the drums can do a lot more than just your stock reggaeton percussion, and you know when he does? He gives Karol G a really damn good song. Check it out. Number 79, Split by Yeat. You've got to be kidding me with this shit. I think I understand why Yeat isn't exactly the next big thing as of yet, because when you actually try to add some polish to this sort of buzzy rage mix, it highlights the painful shortcomings of everything and everyone involved. I'm not going to mince words here. Yeat's voice constantly cracking as he can barely hold his breath control. It sounds like the worst possible Young Thug impression with a sinus infection. And for as much as he squeaks through, I want Bentley, I want money, he sounds like a friggin' toddler, and his description of everything that he's stacking is roughly on that level 2. Every reference to his Tonka only reinforces that. What's more telling to me is that even if I think the production actually has a little bit of sizzle and polish, you realize Yeat only has one idea for an extended chorus and verse, and he just copy-pasted it to fill over 2 minutes. And minus any distortion, you cannot tell me this goes hard. I don't find it creative, I don't find it interesting. It's just blandly shitty in a really frankly pathetic way. So let's move on to number 77, No More Talk by Yeat. Ride with my demons, then my dealings wings out. Money make them do something, put them in a trance. Okay, fine, this is a little bit better. The spare bass synths behind the trap percussion can build a bit of menace, and at least Yeat's faster flows show that he's interested in at least trying to be here, and some of the ad-libs kind of help. The problem is that Yeat sounds like he's gagging on his own tongue whenever he tries his Young Thug / future hybrid delivery, and that makes it more than a little bit rich when on his one verse he claims that folks are copying him. Dude, all of your bargain barrel content is ripped wholesale from the junk drawers of trap the past decade. I don't buy any sense of menace from you, and when I can trace your influences so obviously, I'm not sure you've got the space to label any copycats. I'm sorry, Yeat screams flash in the pan for me, even going on to his second year, and even if he gets streams, the fact that so few people are actually willing to buy his music does not speak well to any sort of staying power. I'll say it again. I mean, this might be the best of what he delivered this week, but it sure as hell is not good. Number 73, Tus Gafitas by Karol G. See, this is the sort of song when Karol G ventures outside the reggaeton bucket that I find a lot that I really like with her sound. In this case, taking something closer to a slow burn dance groove with some smoother percussion, some actual guitar sizzle, and allowing her to play into a more chill sensuality, especially as this is a song where she's deliberating whether she really wants this guy back, or if she does, if that opportunity even still exists. There's some nice melancholic yearning here, and even this relies more on a synth pop presentation that probably owes a lot more to Phineas of all people joining Ovi on the drums for production. It's just a really well executed version of it. I mean, if this so happens to get the same run that Raul Alejandro got a couple years back, I wouldn't mind. This is pretty damn good. Number 72, Private Landing by Don Toliver featuring Justin Bieber and Future.
I'm in the trees. Holla up. What you need? Got it.
I was actually rooting for that Don Toliver album. I think his voice is interesting. It's grown on me. His production budgets tend to be a little bit higher. He reminds me of Ty Dolla $ign in his ability to really nail a pretty good hook. But this is the one song that managed to chart from that new album, and it's not one I like. The brittle but let-in trap percussion doesn't do anything all that interesting opposite the synths that seem to be constantly falling off key. Don Toliver spending his hook in his falsetto, that feels like a mistake. And then Justin Bieber shows up to highlight just how painfully limited he is in terms of personality as he tries to hop on a lot of ad-lib inflected trap triplets that remind me of that song he did with Travis Scott years ago. The only rapper I think who does a tolerable job here is Future, who can actually handle the darker, off-key vibe with some pretty solid presence and detail into flexing. But that's really the big problem whenever Justin Bieber or Don Toliver have gone in this direction. They're just not that interesting. Maybe if Don Toliver stayed in his mid-range with some good hooks, I'd find more to like, but this doesn't click. I'm sorry. Number 66, Can't Nobody by Lil Wayne featuring DMX.
An X-snapper, X-factor, make a rapper an X-sample. All I need is a beat with a DMX sample.
Maybe it's because I remember just how bloated the Carter 5 was, indeed how a lot of Lil Wayne's work has felt inconsistent as hell for years now, that I was kind of tentative going to this song. For those who are wondering, the late DMX is present here predominantly through samples of a song he did with the Lox and Mace back in 1998. I'm a little bit mixed on the feature credit, as that's obviously going to be used to market the single, but if it ensures DMX's estate gets proper recognition, I'm fine. And you know what, the song turned out pretty solid. Swiss Beats gives the mix some operatic knock with the noisier percussion, and Lil Wayne can ride this sort of aggressive flex in his sleep. The sort of hunger that feels like it almost justifies its own hype, especially with the passing bars that highlight the more legit gangs that aren't in the streets but are just as active. Now the sex references aren't exactly good. Lil Wayne, that should be no surprise. And I think I was looking for another gear for this song to really flip into beyond just using the late DMX for the intro and ad-libs, but overall this is pretty good. Not really enough to get me excited for the planned The Carter 6, but hey, you know what? We'll see. And finally, number 7, TQG by Karol G and Shakira. Maybe it's just me, I'm a little bit surprised how much mileage Shakira's been able to wring out of her ex's monumentally stupid decision to dump her for a lot of dumb reasons, especially given that these are predominantly collabs where she's charting and able to showcase this time hopping onto Karol G's album, and obviously Karol G was not going to turn that down. I just wish the songs felt a bit more interesting. The wispy melody, the blocky crack of the stock reggaeton percussion, the production feels like a showcase for Karol G and Shakira to flex on this dumb guy who left them, is now trying to inch his way back in, and they're just having none of it, especially as the new girlfriend is very clearly trying to compete with them and failing. And you know, the funny thing is that it might just wind up enough. Karol G is operating more as support for Shakira, who just owns this song. She's that expressive and charismatic, but it does leave me wishing that some of Shakira's weirder side could manifest on the song. She is a quirky songwriter, she'll go into weird places, and the production feeling so stiff and otherwise routine, I think it does her a disservice. Still though, I'm not quite sick of this approach or situation. I think this works. It's a good song. And that ends a week that, I gotta be honest, will at least be a little bit more interesting than what's coming next week. Now the worst, yes, Yeat is getting both of them here. I don't care what you have to say. Split is the worst, and Shmunk with YoungBoy Never Broke Again is the dishonorable mention. I know some folks have gotten behind this guy. I know I'm gonna be taking the contrary opinion, but I don't buy the hype whatsoever. I don't see him lasting. Whereas for the best, honorable mention is going to be a tie for Karol G, taken both with Cairo with Ovi on the drums, alongside Tus Gafitas, with the best of the week going to Joe by Luke Combs. I mean, he keeps getting away with this. I'm shocked how strong this run of singles has been. In any case, I don't expect any of this is going to last, so stay tuned for that. Or not. Even if I have to cover it, you don't have to watch. It's a Morgan Wallen album bomb, you know what's coming. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse. and I'll see you next time.